Hey guys, Tiago with Classical Technology here. GPUs. I went to Micro Center the other day. Very surprising what I saw. Remember, this is going to be a few weeks after the NVIDIA launches, a little bit after the AMD launches. They did have some GPUs, but this was surprising. 5070. Nobody's like really buying it. Obviously, they sold 5070s, but if you went in there, everything was bare, but there were some 5070s on the shelves. I asked them, I was like, what's going on here? I thought all GPUs were sold out, right? That's what we've been seeing. Like if you want to get a 5080 even, we're not even talking about 5090. That's like unobtainium. Unless you want to, pay a scalper or order a system and wait 6 months, 3 months, whatever it is now, you're not going to get a 5090. That's like very, very difficult to get now. So what's going on? I asked them. They said, well, nobody really wants to buy the 5070. The ones they had there, by the way, which nothing special, they were like $700. Remember, 5070 MSRP is $549, which for $549, even it's $50 less than the 4070 Super was. At first, before we knew the specs, I was like, oh, NVIDIA seems to be being generous, right? They're pricing a new 5070 $50 cheaper than the 4070 Super, which is going to be the older product. The new stuff is always better. Not exactly. I remember when I was comparing them and really seeing the benchmarks and things like that. The 4070 Super was actually outperforming in some cases, like in Geekbench, for example, outperforming a 5070. And I thought, oh, something must be wrong. And then after the reviews came out and the benchmarks, it was true. Some 4070 Supers in some games either match or sometimes they even outperform the 5070. Now, this is without DLSS, obviously. We're talking about rasterization and the pure horsepower. And if you look at the specs of a 4070 Super, it does have a lot of advantages over a 5070. So in a way, we kind of went backwards. And now let's hear a word from our sponsor, VIP-CDKdeals.com, a Windows Pro CD key. Add to cart, you put in code CC20. This will also work on Windows 11. You want to go into your settings in Windows, change and adjust your CD key, click activate, and now let's go back to the video. Part of the reason nobody's buying a 5070 is not just because it's $700. People will buy a $2,000 5090 for $4,000. Why? Because it's good. I mean, that's the best GPU you can get. It at least has some gains over the 4090, right? At least 20-30% in that range. Now, the 5070 got lukewarm reviews. That's going to be probably the biggest reason. Is it a good GPU for $549? If you find one for $549 and you're coming from like a 3070, you'll probably get a decent upgrade. You're going to be, it's going to be faster. It's going to have DLSS, more efficient. DLSS 4 with multi-frame generation. That's hit or miss right now. But if you're coming from a 40 series, and you have a 4070 Super, you may be going backwards in some cases. So you would have to jump up a few tiers to like a 5080 to really start seeing the difference. So that's going to be one of the biggest reasons why the 5070 really was the only GPU that was like in stock here. 5090, like they'll get, I asked them, they said they're going to get maybe a few a week, and they go right away. There's already people outside lined up sometimes, even overnight in some cases. They don't know if they're going to get a shipment or not. It's random. So it's not like it's release day. I can see people lining up on release day, but they'll line up on a random like Tuesday or something, thinking that in the morning they're going to be able to get a shipment in and maybe they'll get lucky and they'll get a 5090. Now, I don't know how many gamers are doing that or how many people know that if they get a $2,500 5090, they can sell it for $4,000 or $5,000. I'm sure that's a lot of resellers also who may have more incentive to go and do that. Because if you just wanted a GPU for yourself, I don't know how many gamers are going to want to wait in line after it's been released. It just seems a little bit like, the people have more motivation that are reselling it, I think. Obviously, some gamers are there that really want a GPU, but I don't know. Maybe it's a lot of resellers as well, which was a problem last time, but what are you going to do? I mean, there are no GPUs and people will pay more. So it's like, you can't really blame people. That's the system. If anything, we should have NVIDIA have more inventory. They've been focusing on AI production since they make a lot more money in data center. So I think they probably shifted their resources that way. And thus we have less on the actual GPU front, amongst other factors. So it's not only that, but Very interesting that the 5070 is the only one available there. So it's probably a GPU also that I wouldn't even really recommend because it doesn't have anything going for it that's too interesting. The DLSS 4 is the only thing, but not all games support that. It's only a limited amount of games. And even that's been hit or miss. The technology is not quite where it's something that you definitely have to go into. Now, I do think DLSS 3 with frame generation, the one that's available on RTX 40 series, I think that one's really good. So if you're coming from a 30 series, which doesn't have frame generation, it just has regular DLSS, that may be something that could be good for you. For example, when I played games like Hogwarts, even Ghost of Tsushima, those all support DLSS 3 with frame generation, only available on RTX 40 series. Even on the 4070, like Cyberpunk, you'll have a pretty good experience because DLSS 3 is pretty good, especially with the frame generation. DLSS 4 with the multi-frame generation, it's going to be hit or miss depending on the game that you play. And then it's just going to be, diminishing returns above what already DLSS 3 give you. So if you're coming from a 30 series, you're definitely going to get a nice difference. Those are probably the people that would most benefit from like that 5070, like somebody who has a 1080 Ti. As good as that GPU is, it's missing a lot of things that like a 5070 will have, for example, even from like a 3070. But 40 series, unless you have like a 4060 or something, I don't really think it's worth it. And especially for $700, I don't know. And then you have obviously the AMD GPUs. This is like a whole separate thing because for the first time they did have some competition, but as you can see, there are no AMD GPUs, available in the store as well. So there's no option really. It's not like people are just buying AMD and not buying the 5070. There are no AMD GPUs anymore. They all sold out the first day or two. So they're left with not buying the 5070 because it's too expensive for the performance that you get. I think that's what really did it in. So we'll see what happens with the GPUs, but it's definitely a bit of a mess. But it's interesting that the 5070 is there. So technically you could get a new GPU in stock. They had a bunch on the shelf. It was the only one that they had. I guess for some people it might be better than not getting anything, but then you're overpaying for something that's not really worth it. Like if you're going to overpay for a 5090 or even a 5080, at least you're getting pretty good performance. The 5070, it's kind of like not that much better than a 4070 Super in some cases, unless you use DLSS. So I don't know, very sketchy GPU times. Let me know what you guys think. Are you surprised the 5070 is like the last one to go, basically? You would think it would sell out, right? It's cheaper than everything else. But no, it's the only one you find. Remember to subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video.